Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Dylan Gott. This is John Hastings. Speak, John.
Hello, Dylan. Speaking of hard times, let's talk about my dick. All right.
I'm surprised that you said that, started to say something else than said that. I thought that would have been the first things.
You got to do misdirection when you're doing it. You want to know what
Man,
I call the
Hard
American
Times
dream?
promo was much different when Val Venus did it.
Exactly. The Hard Times promo is much different when you realize he's not wearing any trousers and he's a man in a mink coat in the summer in the South. Like, you're just like, speaking of Hard Times, hey, if your tailor ever hemmed one of your Gucci trousers incorrectly and you have to take it back and go, Alfonso, I don't know. I know that you're a blonde Italian man, but this seems like it's being done by a blonde Austrian man. Does anyone else understand me, baby?
I am so excited to do some amateur psychology on Dusty Rhodes this week, because I think this entire 80s era, which we're going to be talking about Dusty Rhodes up till the point where he gets fired because Ted Turner's like, hey, don't do any blood. And he's like, yeah, no blood, but it's fine if two muscle queens stab me, right, baby?
Yeah, baby. When you say blood, you of course mean you get it, right? And they're like,
wait,
no.
I will cut myself. Someone will stab me in my eyes, though, sugar.
Now, you are aware that professional wrestling is an uncontrollable sport where nothing is predetermined. And if I invite the Road Warriors here, they may or may not stab me in the face with a spike in direct contradiction to your order. Now, what I'm trying to say is, which one of you would like to see me have sex with your wife?
I've got 15 tits on my body, baby.
Here's the thing about me, baby, is one time I've had threesomes I was not aware I was participating in.
Ladies and gentlemen, this week, of course, is Dusty Rhodes Part 2. We're picking it up after his second NWA title loss. He's a loser.
Yeah. Boo! Yes, we're coming out of Dusty Rhodes, man of Florida, man of America, man covered in money, for some reason not saving it. Here's the thing that we all need to remember about Dusty Rhodes is he was a man who was known for constantly saying when he was in NXT, Vince better be happy I didn't save my money. I didn't realize how crazy it is he didn't save his money until we started doing this very podcast, because good God, did this make cash. So like Kevin Sullivan, if he's appearing at an independent show, supposedly that's because Kevin Sullivan just likes to be part of the business, because Kevin Sullivan like bought a shitload of property and condos in Florida and like invested in it. And I think Dusty just is one of those guys that literally just ate ribs every night and took cabs until he had no money left.
Yeah, because this is after his second title loss. And I think this is the thing about Dusty Rhodes is that Dusty Rhodes becomes the booker of Crockett pretty much when he comes in 85, and is like a main mind in wrestling, because I think he has this weird little man syndrome where he feels like he's not wanted by the NWA, where it's like, I was your biggest draw for an entire decade, but you guys wouldn't put the belt on me because of some weird old...
I guarantee, here's the thing is, I guarantee that is exactly what he thought. And I guarantee the NWA was right not putting the belt on him, because yes, he was a massive star in New York and Florida. They didn't fucking know who he was in tech. Like there's a bunch of places they didn't know who he was. And it's a bunch of places where that kind of look wouldn't have worked. Because in the end, the NWA champion has to look like what people thought a wrestler looked like at the time. Dusty Rhodes is never what someone thought a wrestler would look like. I'm not trying to body shame the man. I'm just saying, like, say what you want about. Yes, Terry Funk and Jack Briscoe and the NWA champions of this time. It was very much sort of the reverse of an ECW card, which is the NWA cards was kind of anything goes that works in that territory. And then at the very top was a very strict, technical, cool, like arm snap into sleeper hold, and just Dusty was never capable of that. And also I guarantee Dusty was annoying as shit if you weren't Eddie Graham and he was making you so much money. Like imagine that promo coming at you when you're trying to just eat a fucking steak sandwich at the NWA conference. Baby, let me tell you about the morning, baby. And you're just shut the fuck up, Dusty.
Yeah, so he gets into, by all accounts, he basically shortly after his second NWA title run, he goes to Florida, of course, where his home base is, and Eddie Graham teaches him how to book.
Yeah.
And he's the head booker of the NWA in 1983. And this is really when Dusty starts to get payback. By payback, I mean like, oh, you didn't put me on top. You put Harley Race on top. Well, fuck you. I chase the title now. But I will say this: he gets a lot of bad rap. Go for it.
No, you go, and then I want to make a point very clear. I want you to say something, and I want to make a point very clear, and then I want to hear your story.
So here it is. Here it is.
Go ahead.
Dusty Rhodes was like, we're on TV now. We need to compete with Vince. Who are the biggest stars we have? Me and Ric Flair. I'm sorry, but he was right. He's the best, most charismatic babyface they had, but they were also setting up Magnum TA. Magnum TA, of course, in 1986 gets injured, so you have to go back to Dusty. There was no B plan. They really got screwed over by that horrible thing that happened to Magnum. Like, their B plan was they were like Dusty Rhodes giving the rub to Magnum TA as like, this is our top babyface now, and then Magnum gets that career-ending injury, and they're like, I guess Nikita Koloff? Like, they have no until they buy the UWF, and coincidentally, that's when Dusty gets taken out. In no version of this do I think there's a time where Dusty Rhodes doesn't go, okay, I'll just job to Sting when Sting's time is up. Or not job, but like do that babyface thing like they did with Andre and Hogan, where it's like he's the guy now, you know?
Yeah. Okay. So what's interesting about this is just I don't think it's so much vengeance, quite frankly, in the 80s. I see where you could see that, but I have to say I just don't see that in being the head booker of the NWA is so different in the 80s than it was in the 70s, because as much as everyone's like Vince is a piece of shit, Vince ruined the NWA, so did Jim Crockett. Jim Crockett really expanded and started using the other territories and the other wrestlers, and the North Carolina mid-Atlantic territory became sort of that's where you wanted to be, or the UWF, or a bit Texas, but it was more, that was the consistent one that never had problems. It was always sort of hot. It was always consistently sort of workable, although that sort of so fucking hot. So I think so fucking sinewy and just,
hey, our territory is hot right now. So fucking hot.
So fucking bend down, mid-Atlantic, and let me see the outline of your underpants and your thick business.
We're going
attire.
through hard and wet times over here in Mid-Atlantic.
Excuse me, Mid-Atlantic territory. Is that your bulge in your business slacks? It is. You know, I never had these thoughts about a man before Mid-Atlantic territory, but I'd like to suck your cock.
No, that is good. No, that makes sense.
Yeah. So here's the thing, though, that's really important to remember is that I'm right and Dylan's wrong. Is that I don't think that Dusty was driven out of revenge. I think Dusty was purely driven out of power. Like, he's just like, baby, let me tell you something about Dusty Rhodes' father. Is that he called Dusty my little giant fat stain on society. Who's the stain on society now, Daddy? And it was just that thing of like, I will prove my daddy I'm so much bigger and better than him. And it's that weird thing about 80s wrestling is he's like, I've made it in the absolute metropolitan, the hardest market to make it in. That's right. Greensboro, North Carolina. It's like, that doesn't sound impressive, Dusty. That's the other thing is none of the NWA achievements, because they're all like Southern capitals, it doesn't sound as cool as the WWF if you're trying to throw it in your dad's face. You know what I mean?
Well, and also that these guys are already established in their territories, by which like when they do... Like 1983, Ric Flair is already... It's hard to get Ric Flair to be a heel, and Dusty keeps being like, Ric Flair is the heel, I am the baby face. We're jumping around, but who gives a shit? But I am the baby face, and it's like, people by 1983 had already... Ric Flair had been such a good heel that he turned himself face, and... That's established in the first Starrcade, where Dusty apparently comes up with the name Starrcade, which we figured out was just.
No, he didn't.
Yeah, there you go.
It's a game show. He didn't come up with shit.
Was it Starrcade with 2 R's? Because he may have just added the extra R.
He did add the extra R.
The extra R is for Rhodes, baby. Boom.
Yeah, the extra R stands for Rhodes. Get 10% of the growth.
Which is very funny because, like, this is Courtney Hobson's notes, but it's like Dusty was the first guy to be like, hey, why don't we have like a super card? Which is so funny. Wrestling is that behind, where it's like, why don't we put all our stars on one card? This guy's a real genius.
Yeah.
If like Hollywood was like, wait a minute, why don't we just put a bunch of actors who are famous in the same movie? Oh my God. How did it take wrestling like 60 years to be like, why is it George Gotch? Why does it Hackenschmidt fight Gotch?
I feel
think
like
that might work.
If wrestling was indicative of society, it'd be one of those things where it would be like the porn would be at the level we're at in society right now, but like we would have just figured out past it. Like someone would have just been like, okay, get this. Like the priorities in wrestling are always so weird. Like so many people wouldn't ever wear shirts.
Well, it's all, the other weird thing about this is like this shows how behind everything wrestling is that like they're like we should have a black star. Okay, the best we can do is fat white guy. How does that sound? I mean, I guess we'll meet in the middle on this one. Like that's what Dusty Rhodes was. Like Dusty Rhodes is the Elvis Presley of professional wrestling. He just took everything.
Yeah, I guarantee, by the way, they're like, I didn't expect you to bend over backwards and give me exactly what I wanted. And they were like
but this is like by the 80s, by the time we're talking about his second title run, Dusty was like, I'm done. Like, I'm going to get fatter and I'm the booker, so looks like I win. And he books himself, to be fair, kind of like a booker should, which is like, I'm very strong, but I'm not the champion.
Yeah.
And it's like The Undertaker is pretty much how Vince McMahon would book himself if he was a wrestler. And that's
I'm going to say
Rhodes is booked.
The one problem that Dusty Rhodes did in this moment is that Dusty Rhodes kept trying to also have a ring jacket to match Ric Flair's. And this is a weird theory, but it's why he always looked less than Ric Flair, is that Dusty Rhodes would come out in like a varsity jacket with Dusty Rhodes on it. And then Ric Flair comes out wearing a chandelier. And I know this is a weird production note, but it may, even though Dusty was like clear, like I'm the working class guy, when you stood the two of them together, you're like, Dusty comes across way more like a bitch than Rick does. It's a weird thing to say, but it's like, it's genuinely how I feel, where I'm like, yeah, I don't know if Rick looked way more of a thing than Dusty always did in the NWA. That's the interesting thing. Like, yes, I know that they were presented as being equal, but you looked at them and you're always like, no, Ric Flair's clearly better than this weird man.
Well, I guess the subtlety to that would be that Dusty Rhodes did start out as the American Dream, the heel, wearing all this shit and talking about, I'm the American Dream, I'm better than you, fuck off.
I completely agree with you, but no one at the national stage was aware of that. That's again part of the problem the NWA has. The NWA is a bit more like, well, everyone knows all of this little stuff, and it's like not everyone's Jim Cornette.
And I think where they suffered was that when you're trying to tell a story like Ric Flair is the awful corporate guy and Dusty Rhodes is the man of the common people, you suffer in that like every one of these wrestlers is established within their area.
Yeah.
So you can't get Ric Flair to be booed in Greensboro. Like that could never ever happen. Whereas the WWF, they're only showing people, like this is the genius of Vince McMahon, was we're going to show everyone, all these people, to new eyes, to brand new eyes. So even if like Jake the Snake Roberts is over in Texas as a babyface, we're bringing him as a heel, and only 30% of those people who just watch wrestling are going to show. So it'll be 70% the reaction we want, which will overrule those 30%. And that is the risk you take, and that is why I think Vince McMahon succeeded, where it's like he just put way more money into it and was like, we'll get all these new eyes on it, whereas Crockett kind of did the thing that you would do, which is, oh no, we have this established fan base, and then we'll just grow from there.
Yeah, I'm
smart.
You are smart, and you're 100% right. But it's also that thing of, I don't think that the NWA, besides Ric Flair always looked fucking cool as shit. The NWA, if you compare it apples and oranges, WWF to NWA, they look lesser than because of things like Dusty's appearance versus who's Hulk Hogan facing. You know what I mean? Like, there's just things that they could have done to sort of spruce up the fucking product
100%
that they just never did. And I kind of laid that a bit at Dusty's door, because Dusty was in this weird way being like, well, we'll just outbook the WWF. And it's like, no, you don't understand. He's got you beat on all sides. You have to kind of emulate. If they had emulated Vince McMahon, invested not in planes, but in like lighting for a fucking arena and maybe marketing themselves a little bit, I actually do think Dusty Rhodes' booking brain would have blown Vince out of the water, because it's much more compelling television. It just looks shoddy and cheap always.
I mean, he has a lot of straight up drugs ideas, where like the idea of war games, which I didn't know recently, was like war games is only until everyone's in the ring, and then it's the match beyond. It's like that is the most cocaine idea I've ever heard, where it's like, no, then it's a new match. It's the match beyond because they fight in the stars. And it's like, okay, Okay, Dusty, I get it. Hot dogs taste better with a bit of blow on them, but you got to cool down.
I don't think Dusty Rhodes was doing cocaine at this time. I think it's purely ego. Like I literally think because you would have heard Dusty Rhodes was in a place of prominence, and so many people want to call him a fucking asshole. If he was on blah blah blah, we would no.
Well, this is the other thing, and then you get the
like the Rock and Roll Express talk about it a lot in their shoot interviews. I watched a bunch of shoot interviews in preparation of this about Dusty because I kind of wanted to know what. Not that beloved as a booker in this time period, again, because they all see him as this guy that was incredibly gifted as a booker, but also incredibly gifted at spending everyone's money on weird ass shit like planes and personal comforts. That's the other weird
Dusty
thing.
blames a lot of that on Crockett, which of course he does. No one with that big an ego is ever just going to take that shit on the chin. But
and that's true. But everyone then blamed. Like, here's how you know. Jim Cornette even says, and Dusty was getting Jim to buy a lot of like. Jim Cornette would defend Dusty Rhodes, and even he's like, yeah, old beef tits was fucking spending at the company store.
Yeah, I get that. And a lot of the stuff that really didn't help was, once again, the fresh ideas thing with Vince, and then also like Dusty using a lot of territory shit that would pop a territory. But that's because you're booking in these like 8-week increments. You're not booking for television. And that is the advantage of coming into something where it's like, I feel like Vince McMahon had all these stored up ideas, which is what Conan O'Brien said that about late night television, where it's like when I watched a lot of this stuff and Letterman clearly did. So we were like, we love this. So we want to do this. And I have all these ideas. And Dusty had already been doing it for so long that he kind of was like, I have all these ideas for matches in a territory sense to pop all these territories, not like, hey, this is a television show. And Vince McMahon clearly was like, okay, I'll do the promotion, and then we got all these territory guys, but at the end, when they suggest something, I'll be like, no, this is a television show. We need to make it for television. We can't just have... Because he's doing Dusty finishes all the time. Like he does with Road Warriors, he does it with himself, where it's like, tune back in next week. It's like, no, we don't care anymore.
Yeah, this is...
No, we don't care anymore because they were on TBS and they were like a Turner property. And that is another thing where Vince had way more eyes on him than Dusty did. And production, like Dick Ebersol cannot be said enough. How much Dick Ebersol affected WWF.
Yeah, Dick Ebersol is essentially the most influential person, probably the most influential person when it comes to putting any sort of athletic thing on television.
Yeah.
Dick Ebersol's the Olympics are presented the way they are in America because of Dick Ebersol. If you ever wonder how influential that fucking guy is. Like,
yeah, he was the guy who walked up to Vince McMahon and was like, hey, why are you filming this like it's a fucking play when it's just film it like a television show?
Yeah, and it's so fascinating. What I love about Dusty in this time period is it's like a guy, he's acting the way you'd think Vince McMahon would act based on what we know about Vince McMahon. He's running around in mink coats. He's making the weirdest decisions.
He's already 15 years in.
He's alienating everybody.
Oh, yeah. Well, Manny Fernandez is a tag champion, who is his tag partner, and they win the titles. Do
you know how bad your life is? Your bad life is going is that your confidant and friend is Manny. That's not even my real name, Fernandez.
Can you imagine the absolute fantastic amount of like competitive lying that went on in those conversations? We're like, well, that's funny because I was in the Navy, and be like, oh, that's interesting because I am a boat baby, and he's like, I can fly and I'm a superhero. I'm for superheroes, baby.
Have you ever seen two crazy people talking like they're having a normal conversation, but they're talking about crazy things?
I guarantee neither of them were listening to each other. They were just saying things, and they were like, we're really good friends because neither of us listen, and the understanding is we back each other up on whatever other person does. Manny Fernandez said that he owns Cuba. He does.
I once was sat at a table with two very old comedians.
Oh, yeah. For safety's sake, let's just call them Ron Hastings and Don Gott. Yeah,
it was their names rhyme with Splam Splompson.
There you go.
And Blitchard Blett.
Okay.
And it was two old fucking bitter dudes that literally just talked at each other about lies for like 40 minutes and then went on to do a comedy show that they did not do well at and they had no idea.
Those are the best people, though. I assume there's wrestlers like that who is like, what a great match. They spat on you, and you're supposed to be the babyface. I got great heat. I always get great heat.
Yeah, you took an actual shit in the ring. You took down your straps and took a full shit in the ring. Oh, by the way, as of this recording, there's a lot of the my autumn plans, the Delta variant. Dylan Gott has beaten all of you for the greatest tweet ever, which was my fall plans. A man shitting into a bucket. Delta variant. He's shitting into a different bucket. Dylan Gott, ladies and gentlemen. That's at Dylan Gott on Twitter. And do yourself a favor. He's the only person I haven't muted.
The first one was a guy shitting into a porta potty he brought onto the New York subway, and the second one was a guy shitting in a mop bucket.
That's good. That's good stuff. That
was a real thing. A guy brought his own porta potty on the New York subway and the shit because he has the porta potty in a box that he had to go. It turned out he had to go, and he just had the porta potty ready. I don't know if that is a prank. If it's a prank, it's the greatest prank in the world. Where it's like I'm gonna go with a fucking shit in the chamber, like fully in the chamber, and then act out like. I gotta go, guys. Good thing I just bought this porta potty.
I've said it again. I'll say it before and I said it again. The greatest moment in Jackass ever is when they're going to take a shit in a toilet in a plumbing store, and they get stuck in traffic, so the guy just takes his shit in a van, and then the next day has to go shit at the plumbing store. That movie, that is the greatest moment in the history of comedy. I'm going boom boom.
My favorite is no, I shouldn't say my favorite. I started that sentence in another way, but I would love to see Johnny Knoxville talk to Darby Allin about like the injuries they had, because Darby Allin's like, yeah, I did that to like for the intensity of the match, and Johnny Knoxville will be like, yeah, I thought it'd be funny if I stuck a firecracker up my butt. It's just like guys with the same injury, but like one of them I'd rather.
By the way, this has nothing to do with wrestling, but just terrifying. So they all it all comes from a magazine I can't remember the name of. Does anyone know how Johnny Knoxville got his job at that magazine? Johnny Knoxville said, I'll write an article where I test out safety gear, and the end of it is I'll shoot myself with a gun while wearing a bulletproof vest. And they were like, yep, do that. And that's how Johnny Knoxville got famous. If you ever wonder, you're like, how did Johnny Knoxville got famous? He's like, he shot himself with a handgun.
Well, basically, I think the untold thing about Jackass is, first of all, me and John are right in the age where Jackass became popular. And it's basically, there was this punk band who also skateboarded called CKY.
Yeah.
And they made tapes. And then Jackass were like, hey, let's be those guys, but funny and charismatic. And then they did that. And then they made $1 million every 2 seconds. And I assume the guys from CKY just like have a nice house, but are pissed. No, they're fine.
All the guys in CKY made up. So there's two crews in Jackass. There's one is the Johnny Knoxville crew from that magazine, Big Brother, the Big Brother magazine. The other half is the CKY crew.
Oh, okay, cool.
And then
Brian Dunn and stuff.
Yeah, Spike Jones literally just went, put them together. We'll call it Jackass. Put this music on, and we'll film it like this. And they were like, and MTV was like, this is probably not going to work. And they were like, or you're going to about to make $1 billion. And they were like, what's that? And then they made so much fucking money.
Yeah, and then they called the Writers Guild, and we're like, fuck you, fuck you, fuck you, fuck you. Click.
Like, I've seen a few friends of mine know vaguely what neighborhood Steve-O is in, and they always see him going into a juice store, and this juice store for a smoothie is like $18. Like, it's the most LA rich bullshit place. Like, it has.
When you take doing a pound of cocaine every day out of your budget, you can afford those smoothies. I'll say that.
I'm going to say this right now is Steve-O. I've never met him, but apparently Steve-O, great guy. But they're like, he's weird because he's super rich, but also exactly that, where it's like, I can't spend this money on cocaine. Do you guys want to just go buy a dog and be friends with it? And I'm like, what? And he's like, I don't know. I'm just so lonely.
What to do. Yeah, well, what was I going to say? Something really fun. It's gone now. Let's talk more about the show, or more Dusty Rhodes, unfortunately.
Yeah, all right.
Dusty
Rhodes.
So
basically, the mid '80s is Dusty Rhodes having some really good ideas as Booker. His entire wrestling career is basically like either making Magnum TA to get hurt, and by of course making, I mean that Dusty of course cut his brakes and just went, baby, here's the thing about the American dream. I'm number one.
We need to get you over, baby. The Horseman did it. How about that? That's a good storyline, baby. Uh-oh. I mistook reality for fiction again, baby.
Yeah, he has so many matches with Tully Blanchard. I'm sure Tully Blanchard is such a dick. Like,
within 2 years of being an NWA booker, he wins the tag titles with Manny Fernandez, and then shortly after that wins the television title off of Tully Blanchard. And he does team with Magnum TA in America's team, and I don't think we did a Magnum TA episode, but I don't think we stressed in how Magnum TA was the NWA's Ultimate Warrior, where it's like completely different styles. Obviously, Magnum TA, if you're looking at pro wrestling, is far better equipped as a pro wrestler than the Ultimate Warrior. But within basically 3 years, this dude is like, yeah, he looks like Magnum PI. Yeah, he can wrestle. And then he has one of the best I Quit matches still to this day against Tully Blanchard. And they're like, double stamp it. This man is our champion. And of course, the horrible car accident, which I feel
Go
like
ahead.
I stressed it once, but I feel like that is not mentioned enough, where it's like, what backup plan, what baby faces did these guys have? They had Lex Luger, who they super pushed too, and then Dusty tried to give him the rub, but then it was like, Lex Luger just isn't Magnum TA.
They also hated him. That's the other thing that's so funny about like the Lex Luger rub is that no wrestler has ever been pushed more while being hated more. Do you know what I mean? They're like, we'll push this guy, but fuck him.
Yeah. And he also, I think, the other thing about Lex Luger was apparently he was like he's super withdrawn and to himself, when particularly wrestling in the 80s was like, wait a minute, you're not going to do a bag of a chotch and get drunk and just sport run over hobos with us? I guess you're just not a team player.
Yeah. What do you mean you're not going to just hang out with Stan Hansen while he blindly fucks what he thinks is a woman, what is clearly just a lamp?
Do you think that
I'm layering this woman's tiny head so hot. It's burning my penis, Magnum. This tiny woman with flowers drawn on her body with a bright, beautiful smile is burning my cock, Magnum.
Do you think that Lex Luger met Sting and was like, I guess this is what wrestling is. This is just some guys working out, and then afterwards you get a light bite and you go to bed. And then
I guarantee.
And then Stan Hansen was like, some cars run on piss. And then he pissed in the tank of a car, and he's like, won't drive anyway. Bye bye. And he was like, who is that guy? Oh, that's your opponent.
Yeah, he met Sting. This is such an indictment of wrestling in the 80s is that Lex Luger's like, I just need a normal guy. And then a man in full face paint all the time who just got a swirly from a racist was just like, and he's like, oh my God, it's the only normal guy here just wears face paint for his job. That's how weird wrestling is that Lex Luger needed a normal guy. The most normal guy wears makeup. Dylan, by the way, for those of you who don't know the video, just checking his Ashley Madison account.
No, I was reading these quotes by Manny Fernandez and Ronnie Garvin. And Ronnie Garvin, I don't know, because this is the thing. I wasn't alive back then, really. So I don't know as a baby how people reacted to this. But Manny Fernandez says Dusty was a booker, which is very funny, but also
Thank you, Manny.
A very jealous person.
Yeah.
If he thought you were getting over more than him, then he put the clamps on you. That's Manny Fernandez. To be fair, Manny Fernandez, like Rob Van Dam, like we're both of the age where we saw Rob Van Dam during the invasion. And if you watch week to week for some reason and you're much younger than us, you will totally understand like, oh, they had a chance to make Rob Van Dam like the next star. He wouldn't have been as big a star as Austin or whatever, but like he would have been a star, like a capable star. And Ronnie Garvin, I know they made the title. They gave him the title when he beat Flair. And then it was just kind of like, oh, we were really into him like winning the title, but now that he has it, fuck off. So it's kind of like that Dolph Ziggler thing where Dolph Ziggler won the title and everyone was like, yeah. And then I was like,
I mean, yeah, Dolph Ziggler,
really like the song or anything else.
Yeah, Kofi Kingston, all of them basically. Bray Wyatt. That's basically the WWF.
I've talked about this a million. Yeah.
Go ahead. Say what you're. I was going to say is WWF is sort of stuck in this cycle because what it is they have figured out how to market a performer back to its audience that you're going to like this guy, but they haven't figured out how to replicate the organic. Like I love this guy. I want to see him every week for those wrestlers that Austin had, that Hogan had. Let's be frank, that John Cena has.
Johnny Cena had that for children, but I don't think that. Like I think that the Ring of Honor.
It's fun to boo. It's fun to boo him. It's so fun to boo John Cena. Like, let's be fucking honest.
It's really fun to shit on people who are like all the baby faces in the WWF, and this was much more a thing in the 80s when you're talking about Dusty booking in the NWA, where it's like they come off like guys who believe in the secret.
Yes, they do.
Like wrestling baby faces are like, you can just achieve anything if you believe it. And then you're like, you're 6'5", you're The Rock though. Like, I'm not 6'5". I couldn't be you because when I run, it's slower than you.
Yeah.
You could. There's no amount of like I could outrun Usain Bolt that's gonna work.
Yeah, you can be anything if you're like me. You have perfect body fat, and when you come, it's actually money.
I know. All you do is you drink your own cum. That's how you gain muscle. My own cum is creatine.
Yeah. Here's the fun thing about me, John Cena. Are you ready? I was just given $80 by a nice guy, John Cena.
But it's one of those things where it's like, we did make it in football, but now look at us in real life. It's like, if you played professional football, things were already great.
The only episode of Tell the Divas I've ever watched, I watched a YouTube clip where Daniel Bryan and whatever his wife's name is, I can never remember which Bella he's married to.
Nikki.
He's married to Nikki. They tour John Cena's house where Brie Bella and John Cena live. And I remember that they go into John Cena's.
Brie.
Is Brie and Daniel Bryan and Nikki and all right, whatever the fuck. Anyway, they go into John Cena's cigar smoking room, and Daniel Bryan goes, "This is bigger than this room is bigger than the top floor of our house." Never forget. Like, whenever they're like, "Why isn't John Cena relatable?" And it's like, because he has a full waterfall in his driveway. A full waterfall.
Also, he does this insane. He wakes up at 4 a.m. to like try and learn Spanish, and he still hasn't. And good on him for keep going.
It's Chinese, which is so funny.
Just tries to learn Mandarin every day at 4 a.m.
I think he's got it because he's like the brand ambassador in China for the WWF. Because let's be clear, Vince McMahon was like, "Oh my God, a market!" Like Vince McMahon is currently has sold the December to Dismember pay-per-view to the Chinese government, and they're just showing it to Uyghur captives inside a reprogramming camp, and they're just like, if you do not renounce Islam, you're gonna have to watch the goddamn Extreme Elimination Chamber again. No, it drags on for so long. It's just not that out. That's what happens.
So we're gonna talk more about Dusty Rhodes maybe after this.
I can't believe I just did a Uyghur joke. So here's the thing with Dusty Rhodes in this period is that I've never seen someone go cocaine ego crazy without the cocaine. And also, this is the only time where you can say, like, actually, Ric Flair was the coherent voice of reason. Because basically what has happened is they get the first Starrcade, and they are regionally a huge hit. This is the time when the Crockett territory is on fire and the rest of the NWA territories are fading, all for the same reason that the Crockett territory is succeeding, which is like cocaine, 80s excess overspending. That at first helps the Crockett territory. That hinders every other territory. And they go on to a bunch of big years of big houses and big sellouts where they are bouncing everywhere. The other thing that's not talked about is the NWA schedule was as grueling, if not more grueling, than the WWF schedule, because I think they're all in cars or a private jet, just going around ridiculous roads, being crazy. Like, this is the period of time where I think Ric Flair almost got thrown in jail for speeding tickets. Like, it's so fucking crazy.
And you have to mention, like, as we said, Dusty's calling his own number, so to speak, quite a bit. Like, he wins the world title in the previous however many years. He won it twice. He also wins it like another 2 times in the next 2 years.
Very briefly. So basically, here's how you know Dusty is. Yeah. Here's how you know Dusty's about to get a title run. It's the Great American Bash Tour, and they'll do like a weird injury. He should be able to come back. They just broke his spine and killed 8 of his kids. And then the next week, it's like, oh my God, Dusty's back. He's resurrected the kids. He's making the kids give him money.
Dusty's super fun to watch, and this is probably not going to win me any fans. And
go ahead.
That is backwards. But is Dusty Rhodes sort of Triple H?
Yeah.
Or is Dusty Rhodes sort of Jeff Jarrett, where it's like guys who are like upper mid-carders who are like, I don't want to be a special attraction, I want to be the fucking main event. Not that there was anyone who was better than Dusty Rhodes on the show, because like if you're watching the show again, the guys who jump out at you, but there is that effect where it's like the more success you have, the more confidence you have. Like, did you ever watch that show? Never mind. It doesn't matter.
Here's the thing that I always found fascinating about this time period is you look at the 4 Horsemen and you look at Dusty Rhodes, and for some reason you're rooting more for me, you root more for the 4 Horsemen against Dusty Rhodes than you do against Dusty Rhodes. Like, Dusty Rhodes in this time period, I always felt you're just kind of like, for me, I was always like, I want to punch him. Like, I don't love the Hard Times promo the way everyone else does. I don't like. I just find him kind of fine.
Yeah, and it's like way more like the working man thing, as you said, was like this guy's the working man, but he's got a fucking mink coat on for some reason.
Yeah, like he's the working man, but he just tried to tip me with a photo of himself. You know what I mean? That's your wife. You know what I mean? Like that.
I autographed it, baby. The bill is paid. But like,
by you, I have your Diners Club card. Wow. Also, do you ever think that Dusty Rhodes tried to get a woo like Ric Flair did, but he never could master it? Like he's like, Rick, Rick, I got some hard time for you, Ric Flair. You going woo? Now I got mine. I go kiki ha ha the woo. Or when I hit an opponent with a big elbow, I just go, all right, time to make me a PB and James image.
Yeah, do you think it's one of those things where it's like Dusty Rhodes also? They cannot be understated how much the Booker mentality probably takes over, where it's like the only people they're sure won't leave for the WWF is Dusty Rhodes and Ric Flair.
Yeah, and the reason, and boy, were they wrong, as it turned out. But
no, but like this is the reason why, though. This is the reason why the defense of Dusty always being in the main event is this guy's not going to leave.
I get that logic, but it's just also one of those things where in hindsight, the thing that the main problem wasn't just that it was the same show all the time. It was also that the people that they were using as those repetitive people in this sort of as the ring turn saga. Mm-hmm. It's very funny in that you occasionally say like, oh, the WWF has become WCW and the NWA, but it's in this weird, it's sort of caught in this weird bloated phase where they can't make any new stars completely. So it just becomes the same thing over and over and over again.
And you have to kind of, sorry.
And much like this period in the NWA, there's also this huge amount of just like, they're bleeding wrestlers. Like the other thing that's not talked about is every time you watch a Starrcade, it's like watching a coming attractions for the next year's WrestleMania. You know what I mean? Where you're like, you see everyone on Starrcade 1? Well, they're about to be on a much more well-lit arena in about 18 months. Oh yeah, they're making more money, but they're also not going to have to they're not going to have to also speak to Ric Flair when he's drunk as much as you think.
Yeah, and they're also wearing like, and this is something that the NWA never didn't have, was like they're always wearing like clean new clothes in the WWF.
Yeah.
Like the WWF was always like, oh, this guy's trunks are clean and they're new, and then, the NWA were just like worn trunks. But another thing I think, obviously, as I look at this, like this guy won television title, world title, he'd win the TV title back. He's the main opponent for the Horsemen this entire time, and you have to change the show almost. Like that's the other thing is, as the booker, I think you have to kind of change the show. Like, yeah, it can be in the way that he's comfortable booking, always, the heel being chased for the title by the babyface. But at some point, you kind of got to be like, all right, the Four Horsemen are great. They effectively turned Ric Flair heel again. Because people forget that, like how loved he was as a babyface without the great idea of the Four Horsemen gimmick. But also it's like, you kind of need to have like, okay, the babyface wins and it's just the WWF.
Let me ask you this question. This is a weird, what do you think would have happened if they had kept Rick as the Dusty character? He's the face. Dusty Rhodes leads what becomes the Four Horsemen.
Dusty Rhodes? Oh, so switch it up?
Switch it up. I actually think that would have worked.
Yeah, I think you could do a year of a great storyline. I think that's pretty much the NWO, to be honest.
I think that, and what's weird is I do think that would have they could have had like the first Starrcade year, and then if they had that, like the next two Starrcade years, that actually might have protected them moving forward if Dusty had made himself the bad guy again, because then so then it's 83, that's 84, 85, then you're getting into 86. That's actually what they should have done, because then you could have actually made Rick a bad guy because he's now like drunk with power, wanting to hold the belt. Then it refreshes your whole territory moving forward. That's how you beat the WWF. Ric Flair actually runs for president in 92.
Yeah, there you go. Thank you for taking it there.
He beats Bill Clinton in the election and in a bothering interns competition. Starts World War III. He has too many kamikazes and finds out what that word means, and then just physically attacks the president of Japan.
Mm-hmm. he publicly announces in his first speech that he's in an open relationship. That's his marriage, and then gets impeached 45 seconds and whatever, disqualified from the presidency. Is that
Yeah,
what
Ric Flair as he was being dragged out of the White House yelled, "If you thought January 6th was crazy, you don't even know what's fucking coming." And they were like, "What?" And he's like, "Oh, I'm from a parallel dimension." And then this whole bit really got crazy.
But Dusty Rhodes did come up with some great shit for as a booker, like the Great American Bash Tour is a great idea.
I don't think it is. This is something I'm glad we're bringing it up. The Great American Bash Tour sounds so. There's many stereotypes of the 80s, but the 80s, my favorite thing is the 80s had this weird love of like, all right, we're going to take things that are vaguely associated and we're putting them together. Do you like country music? Yes, I do. Do you like men touching? No, I do not. Well, guess what? A man is going to wear a bathrobe, get out of a helicopter, and then touch a much fatter man for 1 hour. Do you want to watch that? Yes. Well, welcome to the Great American Bash. Also,
I just like
David
the idea
Allen Coe tried to
of like the fact that you can see the thing, like you can see a big television event as many times and then it happens. Like you're promoting this one event for so long. You said David Allen Coe. I'm very interested to hear the words that come after that.
So David Allen Coe, are you ready? Are you fucking ready?
I know who David Allen Coe is. David
Allen Coe is a country singer, and he kept trying to steal Michael Hayes's Confederate flag cape that he wore to the ring as a Freebird. That was the main story of the Great American Bash Tour that I always loved.
Do you know some of the other David Allen Coe albums?
Nope, but I have a feeling that David Allen Coe is about to be a real Dick Murdoch.
David Allen Coe. All right, I am so excited. So we're going to have to do...
David Allen Coe is one of the... He's like... Because here's the thing that no one talks about country music. Rock and roll ain't got shit on how crazy the country... Like George Strait did so much cocaine that he thought he was a duck for an entire tour. He has a song about being a chair. He's out of his fucking mind. Johnny Cash, they had to make... So Johnny Cash, the movie Walk the Line ends with him getting engaged to June Carter, and it looks like he stopped doing drugs. No, he relapsed like 45 minutes after the plot of that movie resolves and used to do so much speed, he'd go and attack his llamas. He thought
so David Allen Coe, basically, I'm trying to get exactly... the so funny that I type in David Allen Coe and R, and it didn't... Okay. 1980, he just released a straight up album of racist songs.
Oh no!
And that's 1980. When were they promoting David Allen Coe's Great American Bash?
Years later, many years have gone by,
and then it's just.
I assume David Allen Coe apologized for his album of racist songs, Dylan.
I don't know if he has, because
he definitely has not. I got news for you. I got fucking Dylan.
So N-word fucker was one of the names of one of his albums.
Oh wow. Like, I mean, I'm gonna say this right now. I expect a bit more subtlety from my racists.
And then there was like just a bunch of these stuff about how Martin Luther King is just an N-word.
What?
Yeah. Just a bunch of crazy songs.
I'm going to say it, guys.
You look up type in David Allen Coe and racist, and it's not, what are you talking about? I'll say that. It's just like and after that album of completely racist stuff, Dusty Rhodes and the NWA still are like, you know what? Good. Let's work with this guy.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe. I mean, he says it's satire, which that's what you do when you do something crazy. You just say, that's satire. I shot those people. I was satire.
Yeah.
You went on as satire.
Yeah. I keep doxing Al Sharpton satire.
As satire. Yeah, I did this actually tons of satire to my family. My name is Chris Benoit.
Hello, my name is David Allen Coe. The only thing that I like is what O.J. Simpson did to that woman who deserved to be treated that way. David Allen Coe.
Satire.
Do you think that
Dusty Rhodes, another good idea? Crockett Cup. Good idea.
Oh, I agree with you. I love the Crockett Cup, and I think they should bring back the Crockett Cup. I don't know why.
I think they did in NXT.
Sidebar to a sidebar.
They call it Dusty Cup.
They called it yes, they did call it the Dusty Cup, but then it's different. It's the Dusty Cup, not the Crockett Cup. Anyway, it's a tag team tournament over 2 days.
Exactly, you do tag team tournament. People get to win something that's not the title.
It's fun. Yeah, it's fun. It's also, I love a time when it's like everyone's in a tag team. I love those types of gimmicks. Like just everyone's in a tag team, fun combinations, different feuds can result, fun 100%. Little tag teams can be formed.
War Games is still a great idea, and he just applied a bunch of territory shit that didn't work.
The one flaw with the War Games is the ceiling is too low. That is, and it took them so long to figure that out. It took them a full 12 years before they were like, wait a minute, the wrestlers are tall. Should we maybe make the ceiling of this cage so they can do some moves that involve people being picked up? And they were like, no, yeah.
Also, what I would amend for War Games, which me, a man who's recording a podcast video with legit the computer on his own bed because he has such little space.
Yeah.
I think there's too many people in it. I think that you shorten that shit to 3 because
I completely agree with
nothing's going to happen. Nothing happens for so long. You're just watching spots, and the whole idea of sports or wrestling is this could end at any time, and you literally take that away.
Actually, I will say this is that is true unless it's 4 Horsemen versus NWO. Then they paced it perfectly. And they also, this is a weird thing, and this was clearly by accident, but they kind of go by size. So all the bigger wrestlers that take up more of the camera view come in later. So you get all like the high flying fun, like Arn Anderson versus Sean Waltman stuff. And then they slowly add via size to the final guy, and it's very, very well done. Like the War Games, 4 Horsemen versus NWO, those 2 matches, the fake Sting match, then the Kurt Hennig betrayal match, are the best War Games because they basically address all of the problems Dylan has with this. This is, again, the thing is, this is Dusty has all of these great ideas. Dusty also had a shitload of really weird lies and bad ideas too, of like, they're going to make a TV program about us. Sally Field is going to appear on programming soon.
Yes.
And his jealousy also gets pretty insidious in that he's starting to be aware of the business problems the NWA is having. He's starting to be aware of the machinations Turner executives are having, and he's not illuminating people like Ric Flair of how valuable they actually are. The other thing that Dusty is very good at is Dusty kind of controls and knows how to manipulate the egos of his wrestlers. Ric Flair is basically all he just wants to do is be a wrestler. So if you give him that, then he doesn't really give a shit. And if you are his boss and his friend, it's sort of your responsibility to make it clear to him, no, Rick, you can make a shitload of money, actually. Fucking get after it, bro.
Yes. And we will talk about, of course, the end of Dusty Rhodes' run, which is he is helping get Sting over. The UWF has come in.
But you make such a great point. You make such a great point. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I want you to say what you said at the top of the show again about Sting and Dusty Rhodes' relationship, because it's 100% true.
I forget what I said.
That he puts Stings over, but he never does that thing of Andre to Hogan coming out and being like, this is the guy, baby, because Dusty can't let go. And you're 100% correct. That was sort of what was always missing from the Sting build. And Dylan, I want to kiss you on your fucking mouth.
At the end of the day, wrestlers are amazing.
Dylan, take it out. Take it out now. It's time. It's time. It's time for what every listener was waiting for, us to have. Guys, join the Patreon to watch Dylan and I have full Zoom sex. I'm penetrating my asshole.
They just needed Jim Crockett to be more like Vince, where Vince is like, no, yes, yes, yes to all the ideas, where it's like, that's a good idea, that's a good idea. Okay, we'll go with all your ideas. But and Vince McMahon and it is a really good quality to have a great editor.
Yeah.
Just you need an editor when it's like, no, you have this booker who's like, Dusty Rhodes is a lot more like Vince Russo as a booker than people want to talk about, where it's like, and Bischoff talks about this in his podcast, where it's like, Dusty had all these crazy ideas and some of them didn't work and some of them did. And it's way, and I agree with Bischoff on this, where it's way more, it's way easier to just do the same shit all the time rather than do fucking crazy ideas, and some of them work and some of them don't, and you get shit on when they're bad. But at the end of the day, who gives a shit? And you need an editor to do that, and they just didn't have that. They had a money guy, and then Dusty does the wrestling stuff, which it's good to have one unified voice, but when that unified voice is also on the show, it's clearly going to muddle everything.
Yeah, and they don't give a fuck.
Exactly. But and the other thing is, in the UWF invasion, they booked them to fucking get murdered exactly like WCW and the WWF.
God, did they fucking ever? It's even worse. Like, there's a whole episode of the NWA Saturday Night where it's just Steve Williams unable to figure out how to use a doorknob.
Yeah, he's like, I don't know how, and then Dusty,
do I lick it? Do I lick it?
Yeah, and then he gets confused and gives him all of his money.
Yeah, there's a
show.
Yeah. The Freebirds were in the UWF at the time, and there's a full episode of NWA Saturday Night where they're just shitting in each other's mouths, going, "Are you the toilet? Are you the toilet?"
And everyone says that Dusty Rhodes leaving the NWA is like, obviously at that time it seemed like a huge blow, but keep in mind that 88, 89 are like two of the best years for wrestling in the history of the NWA, because Dusty gets out of the way. Of course, as we mentioned off the top, basically no blood. Okay, I'll just get stabbed. Basically, Dusty Rhodes was like, you can't fire me. I'm Dusty Rhodes. And then they were like, no, this is Turner. We don't care. Yeah, and also you've been replaced by like Luger, even though they never really fully put Luger over. Replaced by Luger. They're already doing the Dusty Rub, the exact same thing they did with Magnum TA 3 years earlier to Sting. And Sting is going over way better than Luger, and even Magnum TA did.
Mm-hmm. The other thing you have to remember is Dusty never looked like a star to people from outside of wrestling, which sounds very weird, which was even I, inside of wrestling, had to be told, Dusty Rhodes used to be the NWA champion. It's not an assumption. Like, you see Ric Flair and you're like, oh, that guy won the belt somewhere. Sting, you see Sting and you're like, well, he's clearly like the big good guy. You know what I mean? Of this promotion. Like, I remember seeing a Sting figure at a friend's house and I was like, who's this? And they're like, that's like Hulk Hogan, but he jumps in this other wrestling organization, WCW. And you're like, that's so fucking cool.
It's just they didn't. This sounds weird, but it's kind of like Dusty Rhodes. If someone had watched only wrestling from the year 2000 onwards, I would describe
those
them
people
as,
exist.
Dude, there's people who are like, I like old school wrestling, like the Boogeyman. Age is a weird thing, but anyway, I would be like, what was Dusty Rhodes like? And I'd be like, oh, imagine if Colt Cabana was booked like The Undertaker.
Yeah, that's
where it's like a super fun to watch guy and like a great part of the show and amazing, but like he's smiling ear to ear in all his promo photos, but his forehead looks like he was in an internment camp.
Yeah, it's the other thing is Dusty.
Like, why does that nice man have so many scars?
Who's the challenger for this athlete's belt? The guy wearing the ill-fitting varsity jacket who's eating a full gordito before he gets in the ring.
And then a close on this, we'll do.
Baby, I'm gonna fart on you, Ric Flair. I got a gordito.
I do want to see, and it does stink that kayfabe was so in the 80s, because he had some feuds with Terry Funk, blah blah blah, like actual wrestlers, but he also had one with Abdullah the Butcher, which must have been awesome in the ring, where it's just two guys touching bellies, punching each other, and then out of the ring. Like, you imagine if this happened now, the Instagram lives of just them being like, he won the match, but I'll win the pie eating contest, and it's just a full hour of nonstop chewing.
The Abdullah the Butcher Dusty Rhodes match was basically like if there was a barroom brawl at the Heart Attack Grill in Las Vegas.
And Dusty Rhodes, I'll say this, missed the opportunity to be like, oh, how does this guy win all his matches? And he missed the opportunity of like, oh, he's fat. Why isn't he never had any I'm fat moves?
Who, Abdullah the Butcher or Dusty Rhodes?
Dusty Rhodes. Dusty Rhodes
that's
never
a great
had
point,
splash,
actually.
Never had he never sat on anybody. He never wanted to make light of the fact that it's like, why isn't this guy use how fucking fat he is?
Yeah, he never was like a guy who did an avalanche. Like, his biggest move was he just went, he did a dance move and then elbowed a guy
in the face. Yeah, but he never was like, check out how fucking fat I am, which I guarantee was like, no, I need to be taken seriously. I won't point out that I would eat the ring if I got hungry. Nice. Don, do you want to do best and worst? Do you want a highest, lowest point? Say more things about Dusty Rhodes.
I got both.
What are your conclusions? Let's just do this essay.
Okay.
Get both.
Low point of Dusty Rhodes was how he left the NWA. He was clearly burnt out, and it's just so fucking stupid because it's uncomfortable to watch, and it negatively affected the entire tag team division because he turned the Road Warriors heel for no reason, which meant they also had to turn the Midnight Express face for no reason. And it caused huge turmoil in the tag team division. So that is the low point, but that's not the worst. Worst thing about Dusty Rhodes in this period is he would just call home to hear his son cry and then say, it's because you're not a big boy. That's why I'm not home. High point of Dusty Rhodes, I'm going to say, is the Great American Bash Tour. The first or second one where they literally, like, you couldn't get a ticket to it. It was only in the South. Ric Flair's arriving in a helicopter. Like, it's the, like, fucking coolest shit ever. Best thing about Dusty Rhodes in this time period, I'm gonna say it. I'm gonna fucking say it. Are you ready? The amount of different insane injuries he got that he could then come back from and win the NWA title for 3 days is so funny. Like, it's literally like, they just broke both of his legs and shit in his dad. Oh, he's fine. Like, it's just like, it's like, they set his entire hometown on fire and punched his favorite dog. He's okay. Like, oh my God, David Allen Coe has to speak to someone with a tan. Dusty Rhodes is having a stroke as a result.
I think the high point for
but
Dusty,
will you also do best and worst? That's how good I am at wrestling stuff.
Whoa. at this podcast specifically?
Yeah. What's this podcast called? Welcome to the wrestling stuff. I'm John God. That's my host, Dylan Hastings.
I've got a bunch of baguettes up my butt. Let's talk. I think the best part of Dusty Rhodes.
I've been shitting the whole time.
I think the high point is the Hard Times promo. Even if it ended in, like, Dusty wins the title and then, looks, it was a Dusty finish, DQ. And I also think that's the low point where it's like, that's the entire, that, like, promo and then the result of that match are exactly why the NWA didn't, like, get a crazy foothold. Not that it would have mattered. I think they would have beaten Vince. No, they wouldn't have. Like, you can't stop something like that where Vince McMahon was like, I'm going to use these new debt laws to spend so much money that you guys are fucked, and you guys are going to use these new debt laws to, like, get carpets you shouldn't have. You're bankrupt.
Yeah, exactly. Like Jimmy Crockett's, like, playing the toxic debt market so he can afford more Fabergé eggs for his foyer.
Yeah. Like, it's the whole thing of, like,
there was a whole month where Dusty Rhodes, all he did was have soufflés delivered to places that you shouldn't have soufflés delivered. You know what I mean? Like, it's just, here's what no one's talking about. Dusty Rhodes on the road spending Crockett's money must have been so much fucking fun. Why is there an inflatable pirate ship in the locker room area? Baby, pirate ship. Like,
I think the high point for Dusty Rhodes is probably winning that third world title in the 85 Starrcade. And you got to say the low point is getting fired.
Yeah.
Because 85 Starrcade is, I'm the booker, I called my own number, and it fucking worked. Like, we're on fire right now.
Yeah, and we're literally covered in money.
And star in the show.
Yeah. Pardon me while I just go. I'm going to go scream at a banker because you just gave me 50s. What am I, a poor person? I want hundreds.
Yeah, and then the low point for sure is basically being like, you can't fire me. We totally can. You're fired. Like, that's got to be, even though he immediately goes to WWF and makes even more money and probably with a way less workload and gets to work with his son, which must have been, I mean, in some way fun.
Yeah, it would have been.
Dusty Rhodes as a father, a lot could be improved, probably. I'm going to say, actually, definitely. But
yeah, it was great for him to work for his son. It was a bit probably off-putting for Dustin when Dusty Rhodes kept being surprised by what his voice sounded like. That's your voice? Like, he kept being like, I don't know.
I guarantee that.
It's a bleak thing to picture. Just like, wait, that's your voice?
I could feel.
Do the joke again, John. You fucking loser. Go ahead.
Part 3 is going to be a lot bleaker because it's clearly Dusty Rhodes is like, I love you, my son. You are the best part of my life. Oh, you're talking to someone else who's important to you? We do not associate anymore. I have to be everything or you are nothing to me, baby. And then just booted.
Yeah. Are you doing that movie with Madonna? That's a lie you made up, Dad.
Anyway, I think Dusty Rhodes is amazing. As much as we like kind of
I completely agree. I think he's incredibly important. And I can't wait for next week when we talk about the polka dots. And I'm going to say it, the best angle involving the $1 Million Man when $1 Million Man hires Sapphire to wear a fur coat just to fuck with Dusty Rhodes. It's the funniest thing ever.
Oh, and we're going to get to talk about something that I look back on fondly because You know why? It was like during the heat of my most I will watch any wrestling anytime era, which was Dusty Rhodes in ECW, which I don't think it's shined on a lot, where it's like.
And Dusty Rhodes is the commentator. Let's not forget. Dusty Rhodes
very
is the
bad
fucking commentator. Because it's Bobby Heenan and Tony Schiavone, an unsung excellent commentary duo. And then they literally, it's like if Dylan and I did this podcast and then there was a man who spoke Polish just interjecting with stories. Just like,
man, yeah. Or like, even better, him and Mike Tenay, where Mike Tenay was like, oh, this actually started in Mexico. And then Dusty Rhodes would go, who cares, baby? Who cares about Burrito Land? Eat in WCW, nah. And just would cut the legs out of any fact, where it's like, if you know facts, you are a loser. I am Dusty Rhodes. I am speaking clearly while eating 3 hot dogs.
Yeah. It's very important to remember that Paul Heyman, and I kind of think this is true, and then we will stop. 2 things. 2, 1. Go watch any pay-per-view that Dusty Rhodes a commentator on. The amount of times he yells where the big boys play, this is WCW, is phenomenal. It's phenomenal.
I forgot about
I think he was being paid to say that. 2, and I can't stress this enough, Paul Heyman claims he got his start in WCW because he just showed up at a booking meeting. It was like, I'm here to learn booking from the great Dusty Rhodes. And Dusty Rhodes was like, that's right, you are. Sit down and shut up, kid.
Exactly. I know exactly how to get something. Compliment this fat man. Ooh,
yeah. All right.
John, plug your Twitch.
It's twitch.tv/ untitled Twitch stream, twitch.tv/ John Hastings Comedy. Dylan is still refusing to appear on that Twitch. He's giving. And please join our Patreon to get the video. Enough. Dylan is currently flipping me off, and he is not wearing trousers.
Yeah,
but I can't see it.
Ooh yeah, oh yeah. Enough from the waist down, baby. It's all pubes.
It is. Dylan has a fat penis, but it's weird. He takes hair growth cream that's usually used to recover people's hair growth after chemotherapy, and he's rubbed it all over his crotch area. So what it looks like is Dylan's crotch looks like if Sasquatch had a anteater style beak.
Oh, also, guys, Wrestler Review on Instagram, all one word. Wrestler Review on TikTok, all one word. Wrestler Review on Twitter, all one word. We'll be back next week with part 3, patreon.com/Wrestler Review, if you guys want to get the episodes ahead of time, as well as we did an episode with the Nasty Boys this week, ordered by fucking Eric, you fucking piece of shit. And then that one's up for download on the video and the audio as well. And if you want merch, redbubble.com/people for some reason /Wrestler Review. For merch, you can get a clock, you can get a t-shirt, you can get anything, baby. Thanks very much for listening, guys. We'll be back next week. As I said, Dusty Rhodes Part 3. Enjoy your day, week, year. Bye-bye.